Hello and welcome to Hollywood at Home from Arizona Public Media. I'm Victoria Lucas. Tonight, we are delighted to present William Powell and Myrna Loy in After the Thin Man, the second in MGM's popular series of Thin Man films based on Dashiell Hammett's novel, and an even bigger box office hit than the first. For those who don't already know them, Nick Charles is a former private detective who retired when he married Nora, a wealthy San Francisco heiress. They are rich, witty, and in love, but seemingly unable to avoid entanglement in mysteries that need solving. In tonight's film, they have just returned home from their adventures in the first Thin Man movie. All they want is some peace and quiet, but their plans quickly go awry as they stumble into yet another mystery, this time trying to clear Nora's cousin of a murder charge. Now, the plot sounds serious, but the characters are bubbly and the story lighthearted. You might say, as one critic did, that it's funny with a hint of homicide. The wonderful supporting cast includes young James Stewart in a surprising performance, plus Alyssa Landy and Dorothy McNulty, who would later change her name to Penny Singleton, and stars Blondie in the Dagwood and Blondie film series. And of course, there's Asta, the amazingly clever fox terrier who steals just about every scene he's in. The combination of Powell and Loy can't be beat for its chemistry and humor, as the two actors bring something fresh and new to the screen, a married couple who actually enjoy each other's company. Before the first Thin Man movie was made, Myrna Loy and William Powell had worked together with director Woody Van Dyke on a film called Manhattan Melodies. Van Dyke was impressed by the chemistry between the two and hoped to work with them again. By coincidence, he also loved detective novels, especially those of Dashiell Hammett. And when he learned that MGM had obtained the rights to The Thin Man, he lobbied hard to get involved. He knew that Powell and Loy would be perfect as Nick and Nora, but MGM was not so sure. William Powell had been in dozens of films to that point, but without quite hitting the top. Now, at age 42, studio executives felt that he was too old to play Nick and was probably on his way out. Myrna Loy was attractive and a good age for Nora at 29, but studio execs thought she was the wrong type because she'd mostly played vamps and bad girls up till then. Still, director Van Dyke refused to give up. He told screenwriters to make the actual mystery secondary and to emphasize the relationship between Nick and Nora, especially their witty and affectionate banter. MGM finally agreed to make the film with that cast, but only as a low-budget B-movie to play the bottom half of double bills. So imagine their surprise when The Thin Man opened in theaters. Audiences and critics loved it. Box office numbers were through the roof, and fans clamored for a sequel. It didn't take long for MGM to realize they had a golden goose on their hands. And that brings us to tonight's movie. After The Thin Man, the sequel reteamed all the principals from the first film, including the writers and director. Only this time, director Woody Van Dyke was given a much higher budget, a longer shooting schedule, and the production was allowed to film on location in San Francisco. Now, location filming was still a novelty in those days when most movie exteriors were filmed on studio backlots. Myrna Loy wrote in her memoirs that working in San Francisco was hard but fun. We shot all over town, she remembered, with about 60 actors and crew, as well as hundreds of local extras. And Woody Van Dyke always liked a festive atmosphere, so there were plenty of parties after filming finished each day. William Powell loved working with Loy because of her naturalness and professionalism. He said, "When we did a scene together, we forgot about techniques, camera angles, or microphones. We weren't acting. We were just two people in perfect harmony." In fact, their on-screen chemistry as husband and wife was so dynamic that the public came to believe Powell and Loy were married in real life, which led to some rather interesting moments. For instance, when Powell and Loy arrived in San Francisco to begin filming, they were greeted personally by the manager of the hotel where all the cast would be staying. Without further ado, he led them to the deluxe suite where he hoped Mr. and Mrs. Powell would have a delightful stay. Unfortunately, this proved a bit awkward because Powell and Loy weren't married, and they had no intention of being married because Powell was already engaged to their traveling companion from Los Angeles, none other than actress Jean Harlow, though the news had not yet been made public. Oops. The question of who would room with whom was resolved when Harlow and Loy agreed to stay together in the fancy suite, while Powell was relegated to a far more humble single room downstairs. Loy ended up delighted by the mistake, later saying, "Jean and I would stay up half the night, laughing, talking, and sipping gin. That mix-up brought me one of my most cherished friendships." James Stewart was always extremely modest about his early career performance in After the Thin Man, saying he was, as he put it, ridiculous in a role way over my head at the time. Well, maybe, but I think that once you've seen the film, you'll agree he was dead wrong. In fact, William Powell became something of a mentor to the young actor on the set, telling Stewart it was obvious that the camera loved him, that he had a unique quality that would take him far, which it certainly did. But filming on big city streets filled with traffic and crowds of spectators, not to mention the fog that rolls in just when you don't want it to, can lead to delays. And After the Thin Man was no exception. Filming ran seriously over schedule, but MGM was so eager to get the movie into theaters that editing and post-production were completed at a feverish pace. The movie premiered less than 2 months after cameras were wrapped, and it became an instant hit, one of MGM's top-grossing movies of the year. William Powell and Myrna Loy went on to make a total of 14 films together, including another 4 Thin Man movies. So for now, please put on your best silk dressing gown, grab your cocktail shaker, and prepare to be enchanted by the sophisticated fun and snappy dialogue of the inimitable Nick and Nora Charles. From 1936, it's MGM's After the Thin Man.